I know this is going a little bit beyond the story, but I'm curious because I think you know the story so well. It wasn't a federally recognized holiday for a period of time, right?
Right.
Wasn't it Abraham Lincoln that memorialized it as a federal holiday?
There were many days of prayer and fasting that had happened, especially during the American Revolution, later on in history and so on. But Lincoln was the first one to call a national day of prayer and fasting. He didn't call it, some people fasted, but he called it a day of Thanksgiving, and then people chose to eat. And then it was FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who made it the day that it is. And then it evolved as kind of a day of, national day. Initially, it would have been a distinctly Christian day. And of course, the pilgrims were coming when there was no United States of America, and that hadn't even been thought of, and so on. But it got pulled into our national life after our revolution. And part of the reason was during the American Revolution, there had been so many days of Thanksgiving that we'd win. I mean, the fact that the American colonists won the American Revolution is like the Nashville police force defeating the U.S. Army. You know what I mean? It's just, the percentages are nuts.
Right.
So lots of Thanksgiving, lots of when we had time feasting, some days of fasting. So that tradition got carried into our national life. Lincoln made it national. FDR made it November, turkeys and all that third or fourth Thursday. In the month. And it became a national holiday, which I still, I tell Christmas, people who are focused on Christmas, give me a minute. Don't rush me. Let me be, you guys are putting up Christmas lights before I got the turkey picked out of my teeth.
Right.
Give us a moment to think about a pilgrim and to relax a little bit and think about that heritage.
It's funny you say that, because at our house, we refuse to put up Christmas decorations until after Thanksgiving.
Thank you. And these Christmas people push us. I mean, I'm a Christmas person too, but I'm joking about it, but what I think is important is that this is the only day in our year, the only day built into our calendar, to think about our American Christian heritage. I'm all for 4th of July. I'm all for the President's Days. Hey, I'm in all of it. I'm a historian. I love all those remembrances. But to think about the heritage of faith tied to our national existence, really Thanksgiving's it. And so part of the reason that I tell this story so much and make speeches about it and write about it is that it's genuine. I don't want the myth to take over.
Right.
I don't want the debunkers to remove the story. But also, like at your house at Thanksgiving, I'm not saying you have to do this, but 5 minutes between when the food is done and we're going to sit down, or we sit down and put some corn. My kids just went and put popcorn seeds, on the and we put a few minutes. Thank you, God, for the pilgrims. Thank you for that vision. Thank you for some vision for the Native Americans. My kids understood that they were half descended from Native Americans. Thank you for that heritage. Let us light our torch, so to speak, our own torch of faith in that flame. And thank you that we're not in a starving time. That half our family's not dead, or and the kids would voice it in different ways. And then let food and football reign. And it's fine. It's perfectly fine. But give us a minute, for heaven's sakes, to be sacred about it.
To reflect back. I also, I look forward to it to just for us to look at the past year as a family.
Yes.
Say, what are we thankful for?
Yes.
Because as you said, we're not dealing with the starving time. We're so far beyond that.
Right.
But we do have a lot to be thankful for.
Well, and who knows what, depends on where a kid goes to school, what he or she is going to hear about their national life. And is the whole country just abusive to the natives? And were we just always, militaristic, angry? I mean, who knows what they've heard?
Right.
And I'm grateful for teachers, but sometimes there's some real lies being taught in our schools, private and public. So this is just a moment where the parents can take a little bit of control. I'm not trying to pick a fight here, but have a little control and just say, hey, let me just read this to you. And sometimes the reason I mentioned the Herbert Butterworth poem is that sometimes people read that. That was read at New England tables. It's a 4 or 5 paragraph thing. You have to script that well. Don't put food on the table hot and then time out. We're going to take a half an hour for a sermon here. That'll just tick everybody off.
Right.
But take a moment, and be a little reverent, and my kids are that way now. I mean, they're all coming in for Christmas, and they're a little ticked off they're not coming in for Thanksgiving, because I'm not 100% sure what Bev and I are doing for Thanksgiving. But if it's just the two of us, at a restaurant, I won't be. But if it were, we'd say, could you guys give us a little corn in a bowl? And we've done it out publicly when we've had to travel and so on. And it really does bring a sense of holiness and reverence and heritage into our family.
I love that. I love and admire how much you value it and thought about it and have learned. If there was one lesson from the pilgrims and what they went through, what would you want people to know? What would you want them to take away?
Well, I actually teach this story to a lot of businesses and break out the business principles. And so there are 2 or 3 that I think are important. And I know you've asked for one, but you're talking to a historian. I'm not going to just give you one. Are you crazy?
Come on.
The fact that they were vision driven. The story gets told like they're being driven by persecution, but they were doing fine, but they got a vision. Happened to be a vision for Christian evangelism, but purpose-driven, vision-driven, all the language we use these days, I think that's important. Important for a business, it's important for a person. What's the defining vision, purpose, et cetera, driving your life?
Yeah.
That's the success, that's what needs to success in business, marriage, weight loss, whatever we're about, we got to have a vision. The second thing was they survived by the grace of God, but also by taking full responsibility for production. I mean, I'm putting it in business terms.
Right.
But that privatizing of farming, granted they had better tools, always a key business bit of wisdom.
Yeah.
Granted they had better intelligence and knowledge. They'd done, in a sense, research, even though it was handed to them by the natives. But for each family to take responsibility for its own production, transformed their farming. In fact, they wrote letters back to Europe saying, "What are you guys doing with socialized plots?" They were sort of evangelists for Adam Smith, so to speak, even though we wouldn't live for another 150 years. But I think probably the thing that touches me the most is that when we celebrate Thanksgiving, we have to realize that the first pilgrims celebrated Thanksgiving out of an unbelievably agonizing era of death and suffering and watching children starve to death in your home. I mean, I just want to make it personal for a moment.
Right.
So when they thanked God for his grace and had a laugh at throwing apple cores and arm wrestled the natives and went a hunting,
Right.
and there was any laughter and any lifting of the gloom, it was in the face of all that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson for us. People tell me all the time in our current generation, what a terrible time to be alive. And I go, really? Really? You just happened to say that to a PhD in history who believes in the providence of God.
Yeah.
And I know we've got some challenges in our time. But even if they're the worst times men have ever known, they're not as bad as that starving time. And yet they rose. They built a civilization. They continued good relationships with the natives for decades more. There was a war in 1670, but that wasn't even this generation. So all that I'm saying is great victory out of great suffering. And that's, we've all had suffering in our lives. We will have more. It's just what it means to live in this fallen world. But to know that that's possible. And the pilgrims, they're not, they live as a symbol for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having spent so much time reading their journals and so on, I'm moved by the fact that they could, in the words of the famous sports TV show, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. The image that everybody has of big black hats with buckles on them and great all black and big black, these are Quakers. Those aren't pilgrims. Pilgrims wore bright colors and they drank rum and they smoked pipes, and we've turned them into sin-sniffing, snot-nosed, narrow Christians.
Felt board.
Because it's easy to put up on a cake or something. But no, they were fun and rowdy. And like I say, what'd they do Thanksgiving? They wrestled, they arm wrestled, they fired their weapons, they had a food fight, and they talked smack about the cowboys. I'm sure that they did.
Giving thanks to them that winter or that fall after the starving time wasn't a concept to them, was it?
No. It was a lifestyle.
It was. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your story and your wisdom.
Well, thanks for letting me rant on about one of my loves and be a professor for a moment.
I love it. Thanks, Stephen.
You betcha.